today. Good morning, it's 7:48. Now, an event at the Cambridge Festival tomorrow is asking if we've learned to talk to children about the pandemic. Being truthful, realistic and responsible, but not overloading them with information and fear is apparently the way to go. COVID for Kids is coming to Cambridgeshire tomorrow and it's hosted by Professor Tom Solomon. Tom's been at the forefront of the UK's COVID response. He's a director at the NIHR Health Protection Research Unit in Emerging Infections, and he's also an NHS doctor. Professor Tom, thank you for being with us. Listen, before we even get to the festival, are you all right? How have you got the energy to be coming and travelling and doing talks about COVID? You must just want to rest.
Well, I do want to rest. It's been a very busy couple of years, it's true. But also, a change is as good as a rest. And although I spend the day job either looking after patients in hospital or working in the labs and researching, it's actually quite fun at the weekend to spend time with kids and talk to them about what's been happening.
But also as well, I guess it's really life affirming, right? Because kids aren't going to argue about how COVID gets transferred or, because we've all become these kind of expert, and I'm using the word speech marks, expert epidemiologists and virologists over the last couple of years. It must be great to just have kids and their innocence talking back to you for once.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised because I've done this show a couple of times, and there's always a couple of kids who are really well read, and they do want to discuss some of the things that we're not completely sure about, and that's fine as well. I think it's important to be honest about the things we know about, and then the things where there's still a bit of uncertainty, to be honest about that and explain why we're not sure.
So, where did the idea of the show come about?
Well, I was being asked questions by my own children and also by my nephews and nieces who are younger, age 7 and 8 plus, which is the sort of target range for the show. And we were having fun in the kitchen trying to explain things like the R number. I don't know if you remember the R number.
I remember the R number.
The reproduction number, which is how many people are infected by every one person. And so it all came from there. And I've done science shows before. I did one a few years ago called Roald Dahl's Marvellous Medicine that went to Edinburgh Festival Fringe and completely sold out. And I think I think people like to hear shows. I mean, you were talking about the theatre earlier on, and the new theatre opening in Peterborough, which is great. And things like science, you can communicate it really well in a show as well as with talks and books, which sometimes can be a bit dry. And I think for children, a show which is interactive and where you get them on the stage and where they're playing parts is really good fun, and it's a good way for them to learn.
Oh, absolutely. My godson he's grown up doing most of his learning through things like horrible histories or those doctors that are twins that do a kids TV show. I think it's Operation Out. It's like that's how he best observes information, and it feels so much more organic for him to learn that way. Where do you even begin kind of putting the show together, Professor Tom? Are you sort of going with the silliness first and then working the silliness around the information, or do you get the information then try and work out how you can make it silly?
I mean, you said silly. I'm not sure how I would use the word silly, but it's a story. So we start with the story of Cory the coronavirus, who is a virus in a bat cave in China, minding her own business, doing what bat viruses do, which is they just want to pass from one bat to another, and the bats don't get too sick, and they're minding their own business. And then one day a human comes into the cave and gets infected and passes the virus on. So we basically go with the story of the virus, and then along the way we kind of break off from the story to understand a bit more about what's lying behind some of the things we're discovering.
Now, in my defence, Professor Tom, when I said silly, it's because I heard word that you get kids to dress up as bogies and nose hairs.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe that is... Well, even that, you may be right. Even that, I don't think it's silly. I think if you want kids to understand, for example, how do we keep bugs out of our chests? And we keep them out of our chests and lungs because we have bogies, we have nose hairs, we have all these things, these defenses. So we do learn about how we defend ourselves from infections. And the best way to get people to remember stuff is to get them to do it. So yeah, the kids do dress up as bogies, and we have one who dresses up as a coronavirus and bounces across the stage. Amazing. And then we have some antibodies, kids dressed as antibodies to try and stop the virus. So, and then of course we vaccinate, and if you vaccinate, you have more antibodies to begin with, and then you can really stop the virus easily. So yes, does look a bit silly, but believe me, it's all serious stuff, but it's just conveyed with a sense of fun.
Well, now you've explained it like that, it sounds like the science lessons I wish that I'd had at school. So very quickly, Professor Tom, before I let you go, can we get tickets still? Can we just turn up? Tell us how we get to see your amazing show.
Yeah, so the tickets, it's free, and the original tickets went very quickly, but they've moved it to a newer, larger venue, and there are now a few tickets left. And if you go onto the Cambridge Festival website and search for COVID for Kids, you can book your free tickets via that. And it's actually the show is at the centre of Edinburgh at the University of Cambridge Admissions Office Lecture Theatre. But search on a search engine, put in Cambridge Festival COVID for Kids, and you'll land straight there, and then get your tickets booked as quickly as you can, because I can't promise there'll be any left by the end of the day. Professor
Tom Solomon, thank you so much for coming on the show. It sounds wonderful, and well done for everything that you've done during the pandemic and still working this hard right now. Thanks so much. Professor Tom Solomon there, and you heard him say exactly how to get tickets for COVID for Kids. 7:54, good morning.